Stress is this horrible thing that destroys our life. But what if I told you that it's not? And what if I told you that stress is an energy mobilization system that you can fine tune and, in fact, use to your advantage to increase your performance to the next level? Now, in fact, as a neuroscientist, I do this every day, and I use stress biology to my advantage to maximize both my output and recovery. Now, before we get started, yes, chronic stress is detrimental for your health. And in this case, you benefit from using the stress reduction methods and supplements that are discussed in this video. I will also clarify when chronic stress is actually reached, because chances are that you think that you are chronically stressed, but you are actually not. And on the other hand, believe it or not, many people are actually under aroused to the fact that their cognitive and physical performance is poor. Now, passionate burnout coach Teany Hidalgo, who I recently had the pleasure talking to in this live Q&A number 3 here, even talked about the client who suffered from burnout because he had too little stress in his life. Too little. Let that sink in. Therefore, by watching this video, you will learn the truth. You will learn about the mechanisms, as well as the potential beneficial and detrimental effects of stress. And with this understanding, you can then use the tools and supplements that we discuss in this video to master stress, recovery, and performance. Now, briefly, before we get started, episode 4 of our Q&A series will be about passion and purpose. So if you have any questions for Tiani and myself, please drop your questions in the comments section and we'll make sure to answer them for you. And as always, if you desire to reach the next level of performance, just shoot me an email for one-to-one high performance coaching at nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com. And lastly, if you are excited, please take a moment to smash those like and subscribe buttons to grow the channel and so that we can build an army of high performers and neuroscience enthusiasts together. I would highly appreciate it. That said, my name is Nicholas. I'm a neuroscientist, dementia researcher, as well as a high performance and flow coach. And this is how to manage stress and recovery for elite performance while avoiding chronic stress.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Teany Hidalgo and
my name is Nicholas, and nice to see you, everyone.
Oh my gosh, and nice to see you too, Nicholas. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, like all the things, right?
I think we haven't seen each other for quite a while, actually, for several weeks now. So yeah, the Christmas break is feelable, definitely.
Yeah, it was actually nice to have like a little time to decompress. You know, we're big fans of that, right? So
I mean, for high performance, you have to recover after all, so that is part of it.
Exactly. So on that note, you want to kick it off and talk about our topic and then a little intro?
Absolutely. So for everyone who is joining, today's topic will be stress and recovery. Now, I think many of us know many of us think about stress, but very few of us actually think about the recovery side. And I want to turn it around and kick it off today by getting the idea out that we should, of course, push hard, but that we should recover even harder. Because you have to, generally, I think I mentioned it to you, Tiani, earlier, and that is the fact that if you were to put the average worker, the average manager, the average person, the average employee, if you were to take this schedule and you would have an athlete do that, the athlete would probably burn out. So that is how much people actually overdo it in general. Because every athlete knows that you have to have your recovery. You need to have muscle recovery. You cannot just go into the gym, push yourself to the limit, for example, and come in the next day, push yourself to the limit again. If you keep doing that, then you burn out in no time. And it is actually more related to muscle building in general, but I think it fits quite well. It fits our theme of stress and recovery. And that's the fact that in order to build muscle, we have a certain baseline. Then we do exercise, of course. And after exercise, our performance goes down. Makes sense. I mean, if you go to the gym, you squat heavy, then your legs will be sore. You will probably not be able to walk up the stairs properly anymore if you do it correctly, that is. And eventually, as you recover, maybe a day later, you will get back to your normal performance. So you will get back to where you were. But that's not enough because you need to wait a little bit longer, maybe another day, so that your performance goes up, so that you give your body enough time to actually recover and to make improvements. Now, the problem is that most people, they forget about recovery. They don't care. So they push themselves, they see this decrease in performance, and then they push again before there's even any chance to recover, and performance goes down even more. And if this keeps happening, you actually get weaker. So once again, the average athlete knows that. The average athlete makes sure to have excellent recovery so that performance goes up and up and up. Whereas the average manager doesn't care. They just they just go ham basically. They work the entire day, work themselves into the ground, have like 3 hours of sleep, get up the next day, and they continue doing that. And what happens is that your health goes down, your performance goes down, you of course have lack of sleep and all of these things, and it gets worse over time. So once again, the idea of today's of our Q&A today will be, of course, to push harder, recover harder, and how we will do that. Again, we will see soon.
Love it. Love that. So on that similar note, there's something, I don't know if was there more you wanted to add before I chime in?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Don't lose your trail of thought.
So I love that push hard and recover harder, because I'm a big fan of recovery and taking time off instead of vacating your life, right? With vacations. So one of the things that I like to talk about is working hard and playing harder, which is like slightly different from yours, but it still involves the recovery. It's just that with that recovery comes the tuning into yourself so that you can find the things that you enjoy. So being playful in your recovery time, and also even incorporating play throughout the things that you're working on, right? So like I love doing like combinations of things. So like combining things that I'm doing for work with something pleasurable. And just like a super silly random one, let's say you're washing dishes. Like one of the things that I like to do when I'm washing dishes, which is work, right, is I like to listen to music or listen to a podcast or listen to something, right? So even mundane things like washing dishes can be fun while you're listening to something you like, right? And sometimes we just need to sort of offset the things that we do for work or the mundane things that we don't want to do, and kind of include things that are playful and fun, and that can offset the feeling of it kind of dragging you down and making you feel stressed out, if that makes sense.
I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the reasons why you cannot switch off anymore is because you cannot stop thinking about work. That's why
Right.
most people have trouble to go to bed, because they're still occupied. They think about all the million emails they have in their inbox, which they need to reply to and things like that. So they just cannot switch off. And the easiest way to switch off is to focus on something else. As simple
Right.
as it is. And that means you want to do something that's not related to work. So you want to have your hobbies. You hopefully have hobbies, I guess. So stuff like that. Or you want to spend time with other people, etc. To just get your mind off, do something else. And that is not wasted time. That is recovery time. I say it all
Absolutely.
again because actually, as a flow coach, of course, you get into flow with what you do in your job. Ideally, the work that you do, you're passionate about it. Ideally, you do it to make a positive impact on other people. So, like what we do, hopefully, that we help other
Yep.
people, and that is our purpose. But on the other hand, of course, you also should have a secondary flow activity that's not related to your job. In my case, that's cooking, you know? And once again, it's just to get your mind off of the stuff that you do. Because in order to de-stress, in order to, again, get your mind off, you have to focus on something else. And ideally, you do this with another activity that you enjoy, which is cooking for me, for example, or the gym. I mean, I could make a
Yeah,
million things. You probably too.
that's a good point, actually, because as you know, with regard to flow, combining things together actually makes me feel like I'm in more of a state of flow when I'm doing the thing that I may not want to do, right? because it takes my mind off the thing, and it puts me in a different zone. I call it being in zone. I guess it's the same thing as flow. You get in the zone or in the flow. Yeah.
What we call in being in the zone is flow. So
Right.
it's exactly the same, just another term basically. And in fact, I just want to mention this real quick. Do you know about behavioral activation? That's actually something that is used to treat depression. And what behavioral activation is that you just let people do what they enjoy, as simple as it is. For example, if you have a depressed person and they love gardening, you let them do gardening, because while they do it, they feel better. So as they do an activity that they enjoy, of course, the emotions come up. Again, positive emotions. They feel happier. And again, the depression goes down. The depression symptoms go down. So once again, if you want to keep yourself in peak state, you want to do activities that you enjoy. And ideally, you want to do stuff that's not related to work, but stuff that you just enjoy, as your hobbies, for example.
Absolutely. I love that. So on that note, I know you kind of already kicked it off a little bit, but what are your thoughts on some of the activities that support stress recovery, and what are your go-tos when you've been stressed?
Now, there are many different things that support stress recovery. I think it would be a good idea to kick off with how stress actually works.
Yeah.
Maybe to look into the biology of stress, because there is a good amount of stress, in fact, and there's a bad amount of stress. And to kick this off, because I think many people that join us today think that stress is bad. I'm very sure that most people that join us think stress is really bad. But what stress actually is an energy mobilization system. So stress increases our attention, in fact, it increases our alertness. Let's say you're about to be hit by a car. That's an extreme example, but what stress does is energize you. You have increased blood flow into your muscles, your attention goes up, so that you're like, holy crap, a car is about to hit me. I need to get out of the way. So stress energizes you. And the same is also the case for your work. You could sit down and feel completely tired, unmotivated. You're like, I have to do this now. I don't want to. So in that case, of course, your energy level, your stress level is a bit too low. So it's not useful for you. In that case, it would actually be of your interest to increase your stress a little bit so that you get stuff done. On the other hand, when you have too much stress, then you become anxious. Actually, anxiety goes up, and then you see the negative effects that you would associate with stress. So you have increased heartbeat, you start to sweat, you cannot focus properly anymore. And this is also because the stress hormones they narrow down your focus. So you might have heard of the fight and flight response. So if you have a bunch of stress hormones in your body, it actually blocks creativity. Again, it narrows down your focus, and you cannot think clearly anymore. So basically, you become more reactive, more emotional even. So if you're extremely stressed, you might scream at someone, for example, because you're mad. Or if you're mad at someone, you just let them know, as I would call it. So again, you have less control over your emotions, and you might do things, you might say things that are not good for you in the long term. And the idea is to be in the middle. You have too little stress, that means you're bored, you're sluggish, you get nothing done, you have no motivation. And you have too much. When you have too much, you get anxiety, you have the fight and flight response, you cannot think clearly anymore, you have poor emotional regulation. So we want to be in the middle, because in the middle, that's when performance is ideal. And the perfect state, in fact, is if you're alert and aroused, but you're mentally calm and focused.
Right. That's
And
kind of
what
interesting. If I can just say something, because I think that's so important. We did mention it once before, but there is good stress, and actually good stress is motivational, right? Like it helps you become motivated. To your point, when there's too little stress, you're bored, when you have no motivation. And actually that stuff could lead to depression even, right? I've had clients who went the other road. So a little bit of stress, a little bit of energy to kind of rev things up, actually supports you moving and being motivated to take some kind of action and do something about whatever's going on in your life, right? Or do something to engage your life, engage your mind, and all the things. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's actually extremely important what you say here. It's funny that you even had clients that had too little stress. It's in general because stress hormones, what I talk about is actually adrenaline, so stress hormone adrenaline, that decides, it's actually adrenaline is released very quickly within 10 to 15 minutes and is also removed from your body really quickly. So when I talk about stress, I talk about adrenaline here. And in fact, believe it or not, it's actually a treatment for depression to use drugs that increase adrenaline levels in your bloodstream,
Makes
basically.
sense.
And it improves depressive symptoms. Because what you have in depression is a lack of energy. You feel completely dull, you feel like sluggish, unmotivated. Whereas if you give those patients drugs that increase adrenaline levels a little bit, they increase stress hormone levels, cyclic antidepressants, for example, again, then you see improvements. They become less depressive because they have more energy, and all of a sudden things don't feel so bad anymore. So I think this is a really important point. It's just,
That makes
again,
sense.
finding the middle point, not too little, not too much.
Right.
And this way you can regulate, of course.
Totally makes sense.
All right. Also, given that, I think we've already covered a little bit how you can increase your arousal level a little bit. You mentioned it partially. Uh, in fact, one of the things I do if I feel sluggish in the morning is just setting myself harsh deadlines, just something that you increase the stress in your life a little bit. So setting harsh deadlines. Uh, you can even have an accountability partner that you report
Right.
to every week. Uh, you can even pay someone if you don't get stuff done in time, to get the stress level up a little bit, to add a little bit of risk. But of course, there's the other side, and I think what we all struggle with most is reducing stress. So what I want to ask you, Tiani, what is your favorite way? What is your favorite way to de-stress? And why do you swear by
Yeah.
it?
Oh, so many things to say. So I know we're going to get into tools. We're going to talk about some client stuff, but my
Can you hear
personal
me?
way. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Awesome. It's
Yeah.
fine. We
Okay,
had
good.
a little heat.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. So I was saying that I'm so excited to talk about this topic. And I know we're going to talk about tools and things that we do with our clients and things, but my general go-to for whenever I'm stressed out, which actually I spoke to you because I was sick a couple of weeks ago, which to me is a level of stress. When you're sick, your body is going through some kind of level of stress too. And so what I do is actually two things. I go back to basics. So I only do the things that I need to absolutely 100% do. Right? Like I need to eat, I need to take care of myself, I need to
Totally.
bathe, I need to, you know what I mean, like the basics. And obviously I have to take care of my son also. But
Mm.
after that, I just incorporate the things that raise my energy. So for me, it's deep breathing and meditation because it does two things. Like it calms my body, right? Because it's meditative, but it also energizes my body with the oxygenation, right, of the deep breathing. So it actually brings my body back into balance so
Mm.
that it can heal, right? So that's exactly what I did 2 weeks ago. And actually, I was mentioning to you that there's a tool that I use called the moment pebble. So this pebble basically does like a
Ah,
rhythmic breathing. So when you tap it 3 times, it starts glowing, and it basically like emulates the breathing pattern that you go through in your body. And so you can use this as a visual cue, right? And a visual tool and also a physical tool as a reminder to breathe every day. And so I was using this all the time just to help myself regulate my breath, to be able to use it during meditation. And it's actually kind of warm too, and it's really cold here in New York, so I was using it for warmth too.
yeah.
My
I
hands were, it
noticed
was
it.
keeping my hands
I
warm.
noticed it as well. I'm sitting in the stairways here and it's cold.
So yeah, so that it serves dual purpose. But breathing actually, one of the things that I sometimes go through whenever I have elevated moments of stress is that my blood pressure goes up. And so one time when I was, I think it was at the doctor's office, I was getting, because I was sick. So I went
Mm.
to get myself checked out, and I have white lab coat syndrome. I don't know if you guys know about that, but basically it's that whenever you go to a doctor's office, you go through anxiety. because you're about to go to see the doctor and they might give you a diagnosis, and it's just something that has been part of my body, right? So what I started doing is that whenever I'm in the office now, I just start deep breathing, and it basically it brought down my blood pressure significantly to normal, basically, and to below normal, to like right good blood pressure when I did that exercise. So just to give you perspective on how important, how useful, and how quick breath work can actually support you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the biologist here, so I have to throw it in that what you experience here is 100% what you would expect. Because slow breathing, what it actually does is reduce the activity in the brain area called the amygdala. And the amygdala is our fear center. And that is where anxiety is created in the brain. And it's actually shown in studies that if you do the slow breathing, slow in, slow out, amygdala activity goes down. And in fact, your stress tolerance goes up. So you become more resistant to stress. And the effect you saw on blood pressure, that is adrenaline, in fact, because adrenaline, the stress hormone, again, it's an energy mobilization system. It increases blood flow and blood pressure also, so that you get going. And you saw the effect immediately. You did the slow breathing. And what slow breathing also does is activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's a part of your body that's responsible for relaxation, for digestion, and all of these things. And you activated this parasympathetic nervous system by breathing. So you brought down your stress levels, you brought down adrenaline, you brought down blood pressure, and you brought down anxiety. So
It
that's
works.
it works. It works. In fact, I will cover it a little bit later because I use it as a tool as well for my clients, and there are different types of breathing you can use. And the reason why breathing is so incredible is because it can pretty much regulate the automatic stuff in your body, like heartbeat. I mean, you cannot think about it and change your heartbeat, right? Or
Right.
you cannot think about it and just increase your stress or downregulate it normally. You might be if you are very practiced in doing it. But then again, breathing is one of the few things with which you can control these automatic things in your body. So that is why I think it's an absolutely amazing tool. And I think it's really cool that they actually use it, as a
Yeah,
burnout
yeah.
tool. It's amazing.
Definitely consistently. And actually, I think this goes perfectly into the next question, because I want to ask you about how to handle long-term versus short-term stress. And I think pretty much mine was short-term because it was like, in that moment. So what are your ideas on long-term versus short-term stress, recommendations?
Now, generally, again, short-term stress is not a bad thing. You want to have a little
Right.
bit of stress. And in your case, like you did perfectly there, was actually to reduce your stress levels with slow breathing when they became too high, when you became anxious. So once again, that is what you can do in real time, regulating your stress levels to have optimal performance. But in the long term, I think it's important to know about what chronic stress actually is, because chronic stress means that your stress goes longer than 1 day, meaning
Okay.
that the stress interrupts your sleep. So the moment you're so stressed that you cannot sleep properly anymore, that is when chronic stress starts. It usually takes about 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, 5 days, of course. So 5 days of this state in which you're stressed and you cannot sleep properly anymore, then you start to see bad health effects. So really bad health effects. Because what happens during chronic stress is that the second uh, hormone that is called cortisol increases in your body. So you have the short one, adrenaline. Adrenaline is released and removed in 10 to 15 minutes. And you have cortisol. Cortisol usually is in your body for several hours to days. And what you
Right.
find is that when we talk about stressed people, chronic stress and all of that stuff, then we talk about people that have too high cortisol levels. And that is a problem because cortisol has many negative health effects. I think I actually listed some here. I just need to find them again because it's quite a bit. So what cortisol does is actually that it interrupts your sleep. So in addition, it interrupts your sleep. Uh, you have increased irritability because of that, because you cannot sleep properly anymore. Your mental speed goes down. You literally think less. well, you're less smart basically when you have a lot of cortisol in your system. You actually gain weight. It's not a joke, but when you have high cortisol levels, when you're chronically stressed, you gain a lot of weight, especially around your midsection. And for us guys here, it also reduces testosterone levels.
So wait, cortisol, and so it's an increase in cortisol that has some kind of hormonal and physiological, or how does that work to help to make you gain weight? Because I've seen that happen with people who are very stressed, that they tend to gain weight, and I never quite understood. I thought it was maybe just because they slowed down and because they were stressed and they overeat, which is probably part of it too. But I'm curious what the hormonal chemical stuff happens in the background.
So like you said, actually cortisol increases your appetite. So that is one of the main reasons why people tend
Makes
to
sense.
gain weight. So that's one of the main reasons why people gain weight when they're chronically stressed, because they have high cortisol levels. And cortisol, again, it tells your brain, we need energy, 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 energy. So you get more hungry, basically. Because again, it's a stress, an energy mobilization system. And cortisol is a signal to your brain that more energy is needed because you are in a phase, you have to admit, when is cortisol released? Cortisol is released when you're in a phase of chronic stress. So cortisol tells your brain we need more energy to overcome this phase of chronic stress. And that's why you have more appetite. So that's when you want to eat cake, for example, when you have, those literally when you have appetite for that stuff. Because another reason why you have more appetite for those, comfort foods is because those comfort foods actually reduce your stress levels and they increase serotonin levels, which makes you feel better. So that's why we naturally have an inclination to eat more comfort foods when we are stressed. And
That makes
especially
sense.
stuff like that. So that's actually, we unconsciously do that because we know that it makes us feel better. It reduces the stress to eat. And when you eat, when you get those comfort foods in, especially when they have a lot of fats and stuff like that, a lot
Right.
of carbohydrates, all of the increased serotonin in your brain. Serotonin is the feel good, the mood enhancing neurochemical, so stuff like that. But another reason why is because cortisol also suppresses testosterone and estrogen release, again, anabolic hormones. So for the guys out there, if you're chronically stressed, not good for the gym because you literally build less muscle because of that.
Oh, wow.
Stuff like that. Also, you have an increased risk for Alzheimer's disease actually with chronic stress. I think it makes sense, but I have to point it out that you don't want to be chronically stressed. You don't want those high cortisol levels. It also increases inflammation. So again, we all
Which is
know
bad overall. We already know what inflammation does.
exactly, because you get a constant increase in inflammation in your body if you're chronically stressed. So you don't want that. Then you have anxiety and depression, again, from the
Yep.
stress. And of course, increased risk for cardiovascular diseases, so heart attack, diabetes, even and stuff like that. So again, chronic stress, not good. You definitely don't want that. And I think the main thing is even that chronic stress shuts down the vagus nerve. Because what you need to know is that the vagus nerve, it's the nerve that sends signals from the heart, from the lungs, and from the gut to the brain, and that actually regulates your mood. And again, when you have chronic
Wow.
stress, then the vagus nerve shuts down, and what happens is that you become depressive. And that's actually even shown in the studies. I think there was a really cool study. There was a patient talking to a therapist. Patient was completely unmotivated, or my life is completely horrible, cannot be motivated to do anything. And I switched on a little device because what you can do is actually stimulate the vagus nerve with an electrical shock behind your ears, basically.
Wow.
Transcranial nerve stimulation, that's how it's called. So you can switch on the vagus nerve. And the therapist was like, all right, let's increase it, because there was this device installed. So they increased the electrical activity, increased vagus nerve activity. And within minutes, the lack of motivation was gone. And the patient had improved mood, felt so much better, was all energized
Oh my
again, was
God.
talking about.
Can we do that on our own? Can we start rubbing the back of our ears?
I think we actually naturally do that, you know. If we're stressed, we like to rap here. I think that's actually a
Mm.
habit we have
I
because
think
it's
here
related
too.
to
Here,
that.
but definitely here. Yeah, makes sense.
It's one of the ways in which neuroscience can actually improve depression. But then again, it just tells
Love
you
it.
don't be stressed because stress shuts down your vagus nerve. And then again, it can cause depression. So not funny. Just give a
That's
little
super
bit of
interesting because
flavor.
that's something that for people who are depressed, it's probably something they should look into neurologically, right? Like, is your vagus nerve shut down, and can we, and if we, like test out turning it back on and using these devices, will that change your mood, or is there something else going on, right? So it's definitely something to test out in your own body.
There's a lot of things you can do. I mean, the main thing will probably be to, again, optimize your diet and these things. Because again, the gut is also related, connected to the brain. And if you eat crappy foods, simply put, you have a bad gut microbiome that actually
Yeah.
negatively affects your mood. It even can cause dementia and stuff like that. So there are a lot of links.
Not to scare everyone, but it's kind of a big deal.
Anyhow, back to the topic, because what I want to ask you next is what you recommend your burnout clients to do. So what would be the first thing that you would recommend one of your clients to do if they have burnout? If they
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a tool that I use, but this actually goes along with the tool. So what I do is I recommend a full body recovery, right? So basically choosing elements that support each of the different bodies, right? Like your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions, like all the things, right? So for body, things like what you were saying, so detoxification, nutrition, pain relief, because I notice that a lot of people who are stressed out, anxiety, all the things, they
Mhm.
often go through physical stress, physical pain. So finding ways to do that. Exercising. I'm a huge fan of like trampolining, which helps your lymphatic system. It helps your energy, oxygen, all the things, and breathing, right? So I always give them sort of like um, a smorgasbord of like, okay, these are the things for body that you can do. For mind, you can do journaling, reframing, which I think you're going to get into later, reconnecting to yourself through meditation, through like breathing, like I said before, diving into simplification, right, which we've talked about in previous things, gaining clarity around your lifestyle, like finding your purpose, like, things that kind of help you clear your mind and detoxify your mind. And then spirit, right, reevaluating your life, finding your values and your purpose. I'm working with a client now who's right in the middle of doing just that. He's in a really low mode, but yet he's super stressed out. And I think the main thing with him is really discovering what his values really are. And I don't think people give even just that enough time and focus, because when you don't know what your values are, then everything becomes a value, right? Then you don't know what you're doing with your life. You don't know what is important and what's not important. So even just that kind of evaluation is super important. And so I always talk about trial and erroring, right? With all these elements for your body, for your mind, for your spirit, and things like that. Play around with elements that you see make a significant difference for yourself. So for me, finding my purpose was huge, right? Like that's kind of how I started part of my journey as a purpose coach, and that's why I incorporated into my work. But then breathing, doing certain things for my body, journaling, all these different elements I connect together to create sort of a recipe for myself so that I know what things actually work for me. And so I always talk about trial and erroring and listening to your body and seeing how you feel in the process, because your emotions are really what's going to tell you, whether something is in alignment or not in alignment with, your stress level and your happiness. So that's one of the things that I do.
Cool. And that context, can I actually ask you what your typical day looks like? So
Oh,
how do
yeah.
you keep yourself in peak shape?
So that's a good question. One of the things I think you and I talked about is that everyone has different sort of values, right? I talked about human needs, right? Human needs psychology and the things that we find important in our lives. There are four basic human needs, but then there are things that are a lot deeper and they're called like spiritual needs. For me, variety is a really big deal. But on that note, having some things that are stable is also important. So actually, I incorporate both. So I have certain things that I incorporate in the morning, throughout the day, and in the evening that are sort of set that I always include. But then in between, I sprinkle in a variety of things like what I just mentioned. But to start my day, I always do that breathing meditation that we went over a couple of sessions ago, where I energize, I think about the things that I value, the things that I appreciate, right? And then I set myself for the beginning of my day. And then I go and do things. And then throughout the day, I incorporate breathing, really deep breathing. I take breaks. Sometimes I nap in between. So these are just things that, depending on what's going on, I can add a variety of things depending on what I need, right? And then at the end of the day, I meditate and I do sort of like a processing and a decompression. So I always find that people who are also chronically stressed, they're always going, and you probably have seen this too, they're always going from one thing to another, right? There's no end. So
Yeah.
having a start and an end to your day helps you feel complete so that your mind is not continuing to run off, right? So at the end of the day, I meditate, I decompress, I process my day. Sometimes I journal or do something like this, and then I go to sleep. That's what I do.
That's a routine of a high performer, most definitely.
Yeah.
I
Tell
think
me yours, high performance coach.
I think what you pointed out really important is that you have phases in which you actually push yourself. Again, you increase your stress, but on the other hand, at the end of the day, you want to calm down again. And I
Yeah.
like how you incorporate meditation in these things again. And very important in the morning also to have a set-up ritual so that you set yourself up for the day. And then again, finish the day with something that calms you down again. Because what we want is to use stress to our advantage so that we perform well during the day. But we want to switch it off at the end of the day so that we can recover properly, sleep well again. And actually, what I do in the morning is, again, such a setup ritual, in fact. So I journal as well. Usually I do it in the evening, but I always have my setup ritual in the morning as well. In fact, I do affirmations.
I have a question for you on that, on the journaling, because I know some people do journaling in the morning and some people do it in the evening. Have you found one is better than the other for yourself? Journaling, that is?
Now, personally, it depends on what type of journaling you do. At
Okay.
the end of the day, I would say the best type of journaling is to reflect. And I personally like to do gratitude at the end of the day because then I can look back at the day and say, all right, those were the great moments of my day. Whereas in the morning, I like to journal, but in the sense of listing my goals for the day, my top 3 goals of the day. Then, of course, what is my mindset for the day? What are my values? What do I want to accomplish? Why do I do what I do? So these things, I just confirm them to myself to stay driven and to stay motivated because you have to constantly set up your mindset. You cannot just go into the day and hope that your mind is set up. No, you make it. You
What do you
make your
mean,
mind.
Nick? It doesn't happen just randomly? I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's what I mean. It's just, most people they wake up in the morning and think, yeah, I will be motivated tomorrow. I just wake up and I do it tomorrow. But the reality is you won't. You have to make yourself motivated. You have to make up your mind when you get up in the morning. And that's why I think such a setup ritual in the morning, whatever it is, could be breathing, just something, or what I like to do personally is, of course, journaling to, again, set up my mindset. That is important because we're talking about high performance here, not about hoping that we accomplish something,
Right.
basically. And what I do after my journaling practice is actually just get a cup of coffee. Again, coffee also increases your adrenaline levels in your body. Uh, One of the ways in which I wake up myself up in the morning, I like to watch a little bit of sunlight in the morning because that is another way in which you can wake up your entire body. You
Vitamin
actually
D. Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, you actually have neurons in your retina that sense sunlight. And if you just see sunlight early in the morning, then it wakes you up because those neurons in your retina, again, they sense sunlight and they tell your body, hey, it's the day, it's morning, wake up, system. So that's basically what these neurons do. So you can watch a little bit of sunlight in the morning. I like to get my coffee in. In fact, I also get a cold shower in because cold shower is another way to increase your stress levels a little
I
bit.
know you love your cold showers.
I love cold showers because they're also an amazing way to train your grit, so your mental toughness. I like to do that a lot. And after that, I'm all set up. I got a lot of adrenaline from my coffee. Coffee actually increases dopamine as well, so you get also more dopamine receptors in your brain, which helps you to get into flow. Then the cold shower, which gives me both dopamine and adrenaline as well. And in that state, I'm all hyped and motivated, and I just sit down and work. So I have my work session, and I normally do 6 hours, something like that, with a little bit of, I mean, again, a few quick breaks in there as needed, if I get fatigued. Then I have a walk. Again, you have your breathing. I like to have a walk in the afternoon. That is also
Yeah.
to calm myself down. Because then again, at the second part of the day, you want to do more mellow activities. You want to calm down. And I do that with my
Right.
walk. Then, of course, I have dinner. And yes, I haven't eaten anything yet because I face. So, in case you're wondering, fasting is actually very healthy for your brain and for your organs. So, if you can, it's actually very useful for you to do some fasting, although you need to get used to it, of course. So we'll take some adjustments, but this is one of the healthiest things you can do. Then, of course, I have another quick work session after that. Yeah, and in the evening, I enjoy myself basically. So I calm down. Uh, I do some of my hobbies. At the gym, very important. I tend to do the gym in the evening because I'm more of an evening person. I'm a night owl, in fact. So I feel at my best in the evening.
Me
So
too.
exercise, do your exercise, guys, because that helps you again to reduce stress levels, stay in peak shape, reduces blood flow in your brain, improves mood. I could list a million studies why you should do exercise. So definitely do it. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just do whatever I want,
Yeah.
basically.
Now, I do remember you telling me that you do 6 hour sprints of work, right? Is that
Now,
right?
that's what I personally do, but this is because I'm used to it. So what I recommend my clients to do is to have 90 to 120 minutes, so those little work sessions, and I have 2 to 4 of those, and you focus on the most important tasks, and ideally do it in flow, of course, so that you're deeply focused and you don't have any distractions whatsoever. And it doesn't sound like much, but you have a 90 to 120-minute session, so a 2 hour session. Two of those doesn't sound like anything, it's only 4 hours, but that can already make you a peak performer, because most
Yeah.
people, they cannot even focus for 11 minutes. And when they focus, it's not a joke, by the way, there's actually statistics from the Flow Research
I thought it
Collective.
was 20, but go on.
It was actually 11 minutes of focus a day,
Wow.
uninterrupted. And you need 20 to even get into flow and deep focus. So, so
Right.
most people, they work 8 hours a day, but they have less than 1 hour of relevant work, which they actually do, and they're not even in flow. So that's why, again, just having those 2 to 4 sessions of 2 hours can make you an absolute peak performer if you get it down, if you really focus on it.
Yeah. One thing I do recommend though, in terms of whatever that magic number is for him it's 6 hours. For me,
Mhm.
it's about an hour, hour and a half, depending on what I'm doing. But I always take a 5 minute break in between, especially if I'm going to switch to something else, because then you can kind of decompress from the previous task and prepare for the next one. Not mentally prepare, but like mentally decompress, as in clear your plate, right? Clear your mind, clear your body, clear all the things, and sort of release kind of the whatever you were working on before, and like prepare to engage energetically in the next thing you're going to do.
Mhm. It's actually funny because I talked to another flow coach at the Flow Research Collective, and he said the first thing he tells his clients to do is to plan more time. So just leave room in the schedule. So literally
Yep.
don't plan anything because most people just overlook that. But then again, you need a little bit of time in between, buffer time, as I like to say,
Yep.
because you don't want to run after work. You want to be in control of your day. And the way to ensure that is, of course, to be ambitious, to plan your stuff, but to not overdo it. You want to have you want to have time in between your activities so that you can actually, again, set yourself up for the next activity to come. Because this is about working effectively and not about working yourself into your your ground, basically. I think we've made this very clear now with the push hard and recover hard idea. Hopefully.
I think so. So on that note, what is your favorite tool? Let's talk about the tools.
My favorite
What's
tool.
one mention? Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I think you actually already mentioned it partially, because your favorite tool is partially also my favorite tool, which is breathing.
Nice.
And I mentioned it earlier, but this simply the fact that breathing affects the automatic processes in your body. And the way you breathe affects also what outcome you have. Now, because you can breathe to increase your alertness, you can breathe to increase your stress levels, and you can breathe to decrease your stress levels. As crazy as it sounds.
Yep.
Now,
sense.
I think what some of you might know is Wim Hof breathing. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof? It's the ice guy.
Yep, the ice guy. That's what I heard.
Exactly. So Wim Hof, actually very famous, in fact, and he coined this type of breathing, Wim Hof breathing, but it's also called hyperoxygenation, or what it was originally called is cyclic hyperventilation. And what it is that you breathe in rapidly, so you breathe in very aggressively, and you let air fall out. So you have a 2-second inhale, and then you just let air fall out for 1 second, and you do this 25 to 30 times. So it would look like this. So that is basically Wim Hof breathing. I just showed it real quick, but that is how it would look like. And you do this 25 to 30 times. And then after the last time, you have a long exhale, very slowly, and then you repeat it. And what you will notice is that actually you will start to get warm. So your body will literally warm up. You will start to get sweaty even, and your energy levels will go up. And that is because adrenaline is released in your body if you do that. You even have an increased heart rate because
I think your head also starts tingling, right? Because you're hyperoxygenating your brain, so you kind of start feeling lightheaded. Is that right?
that can in fact happen. Because what this type of breathing does is remove all the CO2 in your bloodstream. And that can actually cause feeling a bit weird, so a little bit lightheaded, because again, you normally don't
You
hyperoxygenate.
can say it a little high. You feel a little high.
Basically, yeah. It feels a bit like drinking a coffee, so like drinking an espresso. That's what this type of breathing does. And actually, I've done this myself before going to the gym, because again, one of the ways to recover, one of the best ways is actually to have a nap. I think we talked about it, but just having a nap, that is one of the best ways to recover, hands down. And I had naps before the gym, and I felt really sluggish, because sometimes if you nap a little bit too long, you wake up, you feel a bit
Power naps, man, 10 to 20 minutes tops.
yeah, basically. But I had this, and then I was like, let's do some Wim Hof breathing. I did that, and that helped me to get my energy levels back up, so that I could go to the gym and then push the gym. So once again, these are ways in which you can regulate your stress level in real time. If you feel too sluggish, increase it. Again, for example, to Wim Hof breathing. If your arousal is so high that you feel anxious that you can't focus properly anymore, do some meditation. Maybe do some slow breathing, as I will talk about in a second. You can even do a nap or a walk, something like that. Just again to adjust your energy levels accordingly.
Nice.
And again, the alternative to that, to the Wim Hof breathing, with which you increase energy, is resonant breathing. You can also do box breathing or the physiological sigh. There are many different ways in which you can do that, but generally, what you want to do is slow breathing. So, slow breathing, again, I mentioned earlier, but it reduces the activity in your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, so you're less anxious. It slows down your heart rate. There's also something, by the way, your heart rate is actually regulated by how fast you breathe. So your heart rate literally changes with breathing. When you breathe in, your heart rate actually goes up. And when you breathe out, your heart rate goes down. And that is one of the reasons why if you emphasize slow exhales, you breathe very slowly, you can actually reduce your heart rate. For example, let's think about it. You're stressed, your heart is pumping like crazy. You have to give a presentation in front of 1 million people. You feel like you're exploding. So what you can do, just exhale very slowly, breathe slowly, because it will slow down your heart rate. It will slow down anxiety because, again, it reduces the activity in your amygdala. So that would be a real-time tool you can use to just calm down. I sometimes even do that in a cold shower
Yeah,
because
that's
cold
good.
shower, you freak out because you have the shock, and sometimes I really feel it because actually I dread going to into the cold shower sometimes to really get anxiety before I actually do it. And when then I had this before, because when it was really cold outside, especially. And one of the ways in which I do that is just, remind myself of the fact that I just need to breathe slowly and breathe out very long, exhale very long, because that can help me to suppress the stress reaction a little bit, and it can keep you mentally calm.
I just
So,
want to mention one thing about that though, because someone I know has suffers from anxiety, and so your breath is actually erratic when you're anxious. And so I found a tool that it looks like a whistle. It's about this big, and you can wear it as a necklace. And it
mhm.
actually makes you breathe. Like you're supposed to breathe through it. And the whistle, whatever, the tool, basically slows your breath down as you're breathing in and out. And you can carry it with you. So that way, whenever you're feeling anxious, you just like, put it in your mouth and breathe through it. And it actually calms your breathing as you're doing it. So that was pretty cool.
It's really useful. Like you have the little gadgets,
I
you
got the
have the
gadgets,
little,
man.
that one thing you showed me earlier, then you have
Yeah,
this,
this one.
the other thing here. Yeah, you have the
There's a
breathing
tool, like
gadgets.
an app for everything.
I like those things, though. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Now, that's it. How about you? What is your tool?
Yeah. So to piggyback on what I had said before about working on the different levels of your body, there's a tool that I call it's a comfort list, basically. And I got it from this, I got the beginning of that from um, another coach. I'll write down the name later. But
Mm,
Brene Brown, that's her name, Brene Brown. She talks about it, but this is sort of another level of the Brene Brown's list, because it's all about figuring out, with those three things in mind, right? Like your body, mind, spirit, and maybe even your emotions, right? Like what of those things actually work for you? So I have all of my clients create this comfort list, like in a sticky note or a piece of paper that they can carry with them, like in their wallet or in their pocket or something like that, like laminated, so that they don't, it doesn't mess up. And so whenever they're feeling stressed out, they don't have to think, right? Like when you're stressed out, you're not thinking about any, like you're erratic, right? So you
I,
just pull out, yeah. So you pull out the piece of paper, your comfort list, and you just look through it. And sometimes even just reading it and
mm,
thinking about the thing will automatically calm you down. Like some of the things I put on there are like hugs, a piece of chocolate, right? You talked about chocolate, how sometimes certain foods
mm.
actually calm you down. For me, a piece of
But
chocolate, not 10, right? Just one.
mm,
Just that alone can help, calm down my body. And so other things. So basically, you in this comfort list are creating that recipe for yourself that you can carry with you wherever you go. And I have found that incredibly useful in every time I go somewhere, whenever I'm stressed out, even at home, if I'm doing a meeting or something like this, or just having it around you, just like you have this tool, that's a
mm.
tool too, right? That's something you can have around you. You can put it on your desk. And so whenever you feel stressed out, you can just take a look at it and figure out which one you need in that moment. So that's what I use.
I think it's really important because it's like a cheat sheet. You're
Yeah.
stressed, and then you can pull out your cheat sheet and you can look at it. What can I do to de-stress? I love this idea.
Yeah.
And another thing I think I want to mention here that's actually very important, and that's the fact that if you do these things, if you do these protocols, if you do meditation, if you do breathing, if you do cold showers, whatever it is, or hot showers actually, which have the opposite effect, which calm you down, by the way. But if you do these things, then you need to do them regularly. So you need to make them a habit. Because what happens if you don't make them a habit, then you probably won't do them because you're too busy or too stressed to do them. I can
Right.
already guarantee that that will be the case. And I think, like you also pointed out, there's a lot of trial and error because we all like certain things. I love cold showers. I have clients who love cold showers,
I hate
but
cold showers.
maybe not everyone likes it. Yeah, boo. But yeah, the point here really is that you pick those things that you enjoy, because again, you want to make them a habit, and just having that helps you. I think it's like
Right.
you said, you have the comfort list, so you know you can relax. You know, all right, I know what to do when shit goes down.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's the same with those practices. Just having them in your
absolutely.
daily routine calms you down.
Yeah, and one thing I will mention, because I have a question for you about it, is that
Mhm.
I use supplements for myself also. And one of the comfort things is also using a product called Calm, which is a magnesium based product.
Mm.
And you're supposed to drink it at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Beginning of the day to sort of calm your body and prepare for the day. And at the end of the day to calm your body from the day that you've had, right?
Mm.
So it's magnesium, which is supposed to actually calm your body down. So I'm curious what, because everybody wants a tool, everybody wants an app, everybody wants a supplement, everybody wants a pill, right?
The
So
pill to
what,
swallow to be not stressed. Yes.
say again?
The pill to swallow to be not stressed anymore. Of course, we want
Right,
that.
right. We want that. Who doesn't want that? So I'm curious what foods or supplements, besides the one I just mentioned, magnesium, supports the brain and body to function when it's in stress.
Magnesium is actually a very big one, talking about it. Uh, in fact, magnesium, you have to look at which form of magnesium you use, however, it makes
Right.
a difference, because some of
Yep.
them can actually cause diarrhea. So you
Yep.
might react to them if you're not careful about that. But
I did
generally,
that by accident.
oh, okay, then you figured it out, I
I
guess.
figured it out.
Now with magnesium, you can take up to 400 milligrams a day, 300 to 400 milligrams. And in fact, there are some types of magnesium that are uh, absorbed into the brain more easily. It would be magnesium threonate and magnesium biglycinate. So threonate and biglycinate, those two magnesium forms, they actually get into your brain more easily. And it's actually shown in studies that this can reduce anxiety. It can reduce rumination, so you think less, all of those thoughts in your head. So it reduces that. And it can even improve sleep quality. So if you want better sleep quality, then an easy way to do so is to take magnesium threonate and magnesium biglycinate. And ideally, you take those 30 to 60 minutes before you go to sleep, because what those magnesium forms also do is reduce a neurochemical called GABA in your brain. And GABA, it switches down your brain. In fact, GABA is also released when you do meditation. So that's one of the reasons why meditation is so
Mm.
calming, because it switches down the thinking that you have in your brain. So I personally also take magnesium, but I take another form, magnesium citrate, because I take it for physical performance, for strength training. But then again, if you want to have improved sleep quality, then magnesium threonate or magnesium biglycinate, really good choice. Also reduce anxiety.
Nice.
Another one is actually ashwagandha. So maybe you've heard about it. And there are actually, I think, 9 or more studies that show that ashwagandha can reduce your cortisol levels. So again, cortisol is that stress hormone that is released upon chronic stress, the long-term stress hormone. And ashwagandha can reduce it by 14.5 to 27.9%. So it's
Wow.
actually it's a massive amount. In fact, you don't want to take ashwagandha all the time, because again, too little cortisol also is not good. So once again, you can periodically take ashwagandha to
Is it a
again.
leaf?
Mhm.
Is it a leaf? Like, can you make it as tea, or is it a supplement, or is it a powder? Like, what is it?
Now it's in pill form usually, so that's the most effective way to take ashwagandha. Uh, That again, I wouldn't take it all the time, but if you're very stressed, if you're in a phase of prolonged stress, then ashwagandha can actually help you to deal with that. It also has many other effects. I would have to look up the entire list because it's a long one. Some people even take it for testosterone because again, cortisol suppresses testosterone. So that's why in the fitness community, some guys, who want to get big and strong, of course, take ashwagandha. They have less cortisol and increased testosterone.
That makes
But then
sense.
again, these would be two simple things you can take. Definitely magnesium threonate and biglycinate I would recommend. Also very simple because magnesium is natural. There is nothing bad about it besides maybe diarrhea. And you notice when you take too much. And ashwagandha, I would periodically take potentially if you're on a phase of chronic stress. I actually have one of my clients in a course, she said that she takes ashwagandha, and I was like, good choice, actually. Just don't take it all the time.
One thing I will add to that is for my son, because my son also has he has a lot of energy. Oh, it's okay. He has a lot of energy, and to help him calm down and soothe before the end of the day, I also give him melatonin, which also helps, the rhythms of your brain, right? And your sleep
That's
pattern.
it.
So
I would be careful with melatonin. How old is your son?
he's 11.
In that case, I would not recommend melatonin because melatonin can actually delay puberty. It can suppress testosterone and estrogen release. And the problem with melatonin is also that it helps you fall asleep, but it doesn't help you stay asleep. So personally, I would
Well, he
recommend
stays
you
asleep.
at the
Thank
very least.
goodness.
But then
But it
again,
sounds like
I personally I would recommend you not to give him that because of the effects on puberty. So once again, they all have advantages and
noted.
disadvantages. There's also some evidence that it can help against Alzheimer's disease and dementia. I just saw a paper about that. Melatonin is also what increases the lymphatic system in your brain, which removes brain debris, plaques, and all of that stuff in your brain. That is why the lymphatic system is more active when you sleep. So while the brain is cleared, one of the reasons why is because melatonin is released.
Right.
But then again, I would not recommend it for especially people in
For young
puberty
kids.
or for young kids. Just as a
Okay.
side note.
Noted. I don't give it to him every day, thankfully. Only when he has trouble
Mm.
sleeping.
Mm.
But it seems to work. So
That's always a good thing.
all right. So I think we're wrapping up.
And here we go again, another hour gone in flow, basically. This
Yeah,
is
love
yours.
it. Well, first, if anyone has any questions on anything that we talked about, definitely go back and listen to some of the supplements, tools, and different ways that you can support yourself. Hey, Debbie's on with what we've been talking about. So you and I both have something. Do you want to talk about your freebie that you have on your site?
Now, what I actually want to offer most here is high performance coaching. I think we go this way because, again, what I do is high performance. And currently, I have a few slots open for one-to-one high performance coaching. So, similar to you, I help people to find their passion and purpose. But other things I do is, of course, optimizing the daily routine for high performance. So, typical time and task management skills. But of course, I'm a neuroscientist, so I also help people to optimize their routine for health. So the things we talked about today, how to optimize your alertness and your stress levels for increased performance, that would be one of the things I do. And I also help people, of course, to find flow as a flow coach. So flow is the state of total absorption in which you forget everything else. And that has like 500% creativity increases. So it's crazy. It's actually shown in studies. So I'm not making this up.
Love it.
You actually get 5 days of work done in a single day if you were to do this in flow. So this is not, I'm not kidding. Then other things, of course, more optimizing the neurochemicals in your brain for motivation, drive, and all of these things. Yeah, and brain health, of course, as a neuroscientist and dementia researcher. All
Love
right.
it.
Do you have anything to
So
offer?
so you can sign up at where? Where can they sign up?
Good point. Let's not forget that. So if anyone is interested in high performance coaching, becoming the absolute best, reaching the next level, then they can email me at nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com, nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com, or simply send me an email. Send me a message on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I post there very regularly. I'm on Facebook. So I can drop it also on the YouTube comments.
Oh, I was just about to do that just now. Okay, just
Awesome. So
dropped it
thank you a lot. You know my address. Awesome. Anyhow, so that is that.
Fantastic. Cool. So that's awesome. I'm also obviously a burnout and purpose coach. So you can work with me as well. You can DM me or private message me in any of the platforms that you see this posted. And actually, you can grab your free Burnout to Zen kit, which is sort of the intro of how to start understanding stress and knowing your signs and some of the beginnings of how to decompress from it through the kit. And that's free on my website, which is teanyhidalgo.com. And that's it. I'm so happy to do this with you. And we're going to do it one more time, I think next month. So we'll keep you guys posted on the date for that. And let me see, what was the topic that we were going to talk about?
We can update the others once we are doing it. So stay tuned, guys.
We'll talk about it. Oh, passion and purpose. That's what we're going to talk about. Cool. So thank you. If you guys have any comments at all, just type in the comments below. Share it if you know someone who really needs to hear this or who needs the support. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next month.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right,
Take
then,
care,
guys.
everyone.
Have a good one.
And that concludes the video. So as always, thank you for your time and attention. And if you enjoyed the video, and if you want to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends and those who could benefit from it, so that we can build an army of neuroscience and high-performance enthusiasts together. I would strongly appreciate it. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions for our 4th Dogma Break Q&A, which will be about finding your passion and purpose, please drop your questions in the comments and we will make sure to answer them for you. And if you want to reach the next level, just shoot me an email at nicholaspeterreich@gmail.com for high-performance coaching. More information in the video description. That said, have a stress-improved week ahead of you, high performers, and I will see you in the next video.